morning. This topic came to me today when I woke up. PTSD and veterans, right? Or PTSD in general. How do we handle it? How do we overcome it? How do you come back from war, right? Or how do you come back from PTSD in general? But war, it's different, right? Good morning, by the way. How's everyone doing? I'm gonna dive into this a little bit. Here we go. 8 things you should know. PTSD and veterans, right? And then we can take us into our normal, I guess you would say civilian, right? We all struggle, but having PTSD from a war, it's kind of, does anyone know someone that struggles with this from war, combat, military in general? I know some people that struggle with PTSD from being in the army or the military, right? And they never even seen combat. So maybe it's things they've seen or things they went through prior. 8 things you should know about PTSD and veterans. I've never seen this. Any input would be very helpful. I lost a couple friends to PTSD and suicide after coming back from war. And I got some friends that don't even bother them. Or at least they don't show that it bothers them.
PTSD or post-traumatic stress disorder is the response an individual has to experiencing or witnessing a terrifying or traumatic event. And symptoms of that can include flashbacks, nightmares, avoiding the stimulus. The symptoms in and of themselves usually start within 3 months after traumatic event, mainly to experiencing or witnessing.
Can you explain this a little more?
A terrifying or traumatic event. And symptoms of that can include flashbacks, nightmares, avoiding the stimulus. The symptoms in and of themselves usually start within 3 months after traumatic event.
Does anyone have anyone that was in the military? Okay, my dad was in the military, but this is back. I wasn't even born yet, right? Vietnam. He did 2 tours, volunteer, 101st Airborne, Screaming Eagles, right? But has anyone ever seen someone come back from war and could be completely different? Or come back from the military and be completely different in a bad way, right? And I'm not saying, obviously, they break them down and make them who they want to make them, right? But has anyone seen the PTSD in somebody? Or how the military has changed them completely, right? Has anyone ever witnessed that?
May not actually appear till years later, but can usually be categorized in 4 basic categories. That would be the intrusive thoughts, avoidance, emotional disturbance, and or functional disturbance.
Like, how do you come back from war, right? And then just supposed to be right back in society. I think they give them a couple weeks, maybe. Therapy, if they need it. I mean, how many guys really say, yeah, I'm going through it? Probably not many. Probably not many at all, right?
Disturbance, changes in the way you think and react to certain situations.
About 7 or 8 out of every 100 people 7 to 8% of the population will have PTSD at some point in their lives. About 8 million adults have PTSD during any given year. The U.S. Department of Veterans estimates that PTSD afflicts almost 31% of Vietnam vets, as many as 10% of Gulf War or Desert Storm veterans, 11% of veterans of the war in Afghanistan, and 20% of Iraq war veterans. That's an awful lot.
How'd they come up with that number? How can you give a percentage of a number when you don't even know the whole percentage? You don't even know how many people are actually struggling. How do you know how many people are actually struggling if they don't tell you? What do you do, a survey? You don't think people lie on surveys? Come on, man. I don't know how you just come up with that number. I don't know how you come up. Oh, you haven't seen them from war veterans, but survivors. Oh, you're saying, okay, PTSD, you're saying?
Of our own.
In general?
Of folks that were willing to risk everything for us, and now, have returned because of the experience that has happened. And I think there is a real obligation that any society has to care for folks.
The reality is that a significant portion of the United
What have Junior, what have they done to get help, and what has helped them? Has it helped them?
States, Americans are afflicted, with traumatic symptoms.
Well, Pam, you're one of them as well? Are you a veteran that suffers from PTSD? Was there any kind of support? I'm not sure what exactly you were in, but when you got out of the military or came back from war, was there any kind of what kind of therapy did they offer? What did they offer to you? How did that process go?
8 million folks will experience a traumatic event this year. That's a significant portion of society. Suicide in general is a significant issue in the population, but with veterans, they tend to have significantly higher rates in terms of 22 veterans a day, 1 to 3 active veterans a day. That's quite alarming when you think about the overall numbers. And a lot of that has to do with, the stigma that's attached to getting treatment, access to treatment, feeling supported.
Pam, you said no. What, they didn't do anything? I forget. I asked you 10 questions. Sorry.
There are 2 particular modes of treatment that have been proven to be significantly effective for folks with PTSD, especially veterans. And that's cognitive processing therapy and prolonged exposure therapy. Both of those should be done with a professional who is.
Oh, sexual harassment policies. Yeah, that's another thing that's big in the Army or the military. That'd be a good topic too to talk about. The military isn't the same as it was, right? Maybe adding them policies make it better, but I think it's also going down the wrong road. You know what I mean? In certain aspects. Service that I know have undergone. Has it helped them? Are they doing better now? It's very interesting, but it's just hard for me to talk on because I never served. I was never in the military. I can just go off from what I see from people that were, and how it affects some people and some people don't, or they're very good at hiding it. I think it's a very important topic, right? PTSD in general. It don't have to be just veterans, but it's just kind of what came to me, I visited my dad yesterday in the hospital, and he brought up some. Well, and another thing, he brought up about Vietnam, but another thing is his buddy from Vietnam, Flint, a couple months ago, he took his life, so I don't know if I really ever said much about that. Maybe I did a little bit, but I don't know. It's just been heavy on my heart. 70-some years old, and you've been through hell and back, and that's how we end it, Sad, right? I can't speak for him, but I don't know. It's just sad. I haven't really talked much about that. Yeah, the VA, that's another. My dad deals with the VA as well. He's actually in another hospital right now because they don't have transportation to get him back to the VA. Yeah, it's sad, right? I mean, yeah, I appreciate it. It was my dad's best friend, from the war. I knew him all my life. This was a couple months ago, right? Over the winter. But I just never really talked about it, and now we're on this topic, so. But, yeah, the VA, the VA is good, but then it also makes me mad sometimes. There isn't enough money. Back to my point. So he had to go to a different hospital, right? But now he has to get back to the VA for, he's got to get back to the VA for, what am I trying to say here? Rehab, like, mobility. And then they didn't have transportation for him. You mean to tell me you don't have transportation? You don't have no one that can come pick this man up and take him back? There's no one. You ain't got no one that can come pick this guy up and take him back to where he needs to go. Pretty fucking sad, right? Pretty sad. I don't want to get into that shit, but it's too sad. But yeah, let's continue.
Is trained in those modalities to actually help the individual work through their traumatic experience and be able to come to grips with it.
My flashbacks were terrible at first, and after you get processed with traumatic memories, you can manage your thoughts. Is this from sexual assault, you're saying, Junior? Hey, there's no problem showing emotions, right? Yeah, it's sad. It's a sad thing, the VA. I mean, these people put their life on the line for us, right? That's the least we can do is take care of them, I understand short staffed and blah blah blah. I get it. I mean, these people didn't say that when they're in the war, right? When they get ambushed and half of the platoon is wiped out. They don't say, "Well, I ain't got time." Right? I ain't got time to fight. No, that's the only thing they knew what to do was fight. You had to fight, or you'd be dead. So I mean, don't tell me you don't have time for them, or you don't have that resources for them when they had all it's just frustrating. It's frustrating.
Vets are trained to be stoic in battle, right? Push their emotions aside so that they can remain focused. They're trained to sleep lightly. They're trained to be hypervigilant.
From sexual violence. How are you doing now? Are you in a better place than you were before? I don't know if you said how many years it was, how many years it's been, but I appreciate you sharing your story. Hopefully each day you get a little better, right? Remember, it's not your fault. You know what I mean? It wasn't your fault.
And know all the things that are going on around them. Be able to pick up details in the environment that we may not necessarily pick up as civilians. All of these things that are ingrained in them as soldiers, as warriors, a lot of times don't help them function well when they return to society. So what we end up with is folks feeling like they don't really have people that they can turn to. They don't have people that understand what they're experiencing.
A quick story about motorcycle clubs, right? This is how and why motorcycle clubs are started. talking about 1% clubs, or veteran clubs, is because when you come back from war, you don't have that brotherhood, right? You don't have that brotherhood in society like you had in combat. So back after World War II and stuff, these guys started riding motorcycles, became a brotherhood, right? That's why you got these 1% clubs and other biker clubs. It was that brotherhood, that trust. That's why these things were built, right? Now, whatever your opinion is about them is your opinion about the clubs. But this is why this is what they were founded off of, right? You can't just go from war and battle and come back to society and just fit right in. No one around you has experienced the same thing you did. The only people that experienced what you experienced were the people that were with you, right? Now, they might deal with it differently, right? But they're your brothers. Like, they've been through war, they've been through combat together. People in society haven't been through that. The hardest thing they've been through is a traffic jam. You know what I mean? These guys been through a traffic jam, or you've been through waiting in line somewhere, or there wasn't enough bread or milk at the grocery store. These fucking guys and women have been through hell and back, right? There's a difference. You don't have that with regular civilian society. That's part of the PTSD problem with me, like, or in general, not with me, but in general, I think, is because they don't have them people to turn to. Okay, so when you come back from war or whatever, not everybody lives in the same town, right? It's not like your buddy lives down the street that you fought 9-10 months with. He might be on a whole other side of the country, right? And then people go on about their lives, and then you miss, it's very deep, and it's very, I don't know. There's a lot into it, right? I don't know how you can just let these people get back into society after doing and seeing what they saw. It's way deeper. There should be a long process. Do I know what the process is? Do I have the answers? No, but it should be a lot longer than what it is. Oh man. So I'm glad you're doing better now. Yeah, that's sad stuff. And that kind of stuff goes on more than we even know, right? I was just talking about this today or yesterday at work. Like, I was watching a video about this where, like, people catch people, predators or whatever. It's like, how this is just one dude that does this for whatever purpose, to stop it or whatever his purpose is to get. I don't know why he does it, right? I never watched it long enough, but that's just one dude in the world that's trying to stop this from happening. And he catches people like every day. That's just one guy. Imagine how many more people are doing. That's just sad. It's disgusting.
Being told or described as having a disorder is off-putting to most veterans, and is counterintuitive for them because they're supposed to be in control of everything. So how can I be in control if I have a disorder, or what we like to refer to as the invisible wounds of war? It's really what it is. They're unseen injuries that the veterans often come home with.
The example I always use is diabetes. If you walked into the doctors or you began noticing that you had something was going on, your vision, your this, your that, or the cold sweats or whatever you would go to a doctor and you would find out, and the doctor says to you, geez, you're diabetes too, and this is what you need to do. Wouldn't you go do that? We're talking about your very survival. For me, this is no different. Mind, body, I don't draw a distinction between that, so that, if this is what's going on with you, you got to get the help that you need for your very survival in a lot of cases.
If you're a veteran, a first responder, police officer, fireman, EMT, 9 times out of 10, doing your job requires you to have a heightened level of adrenaline, causes you to be on a heightened level of awareness. You need to be in control of the situation. So when you return to civilian life, if you will, it tends to be a bit boring. So you're looking for ways to keep that excitement going. You're looking for ways to increase your ability to experience the kinds of things you experienced when you were deployed or working. So you turn to, the things that can cause that kind of release of chemicals in the brain for yourself.
Yeah, but it's sad, right? You shouldn't have to go looking for that stuff. As humans, we're not built to see that kind of shit, no matter what it is or whatever it is. But then to go looking for it, I guess that don't even make sense, right?
That may be the drugs, alcohol, gambling, significant risk-taking behaviors.
Isolation is really a killer, and we're losing about 22 vets a day through suicide, and a lot of that we find is because of isolation, because of that lack of primary and social support that keeps people alive, keeps them integrated, keeps them involved. We choose a day to honor our veterans, both living and dead, on Memorial Day in particular, for those that have passed. But Veterans Day is a day that a lot of folks gather, and we pay homage to folks that have given that sacrifice.
It's timely because it's Veterans Day, but I think it's definitely something that we need to be aware of throughout the year. These issues aren't limited to those 2 or 3 days a year, so it should be something that's in the forefront of our mind.
I mean, that's with any holiday, any remembrance, right? Just not one day a year people battle. Like mental health should be every day, right? I mean, there should be, what is there, a mental health month? It's what we just struggle 1 month out of the year. Having one day, every day should be important, right? I mean, what's one day? You isolate because there's a lot of guilt, shame, anger, etc. It's not something you want to share with others. Yeah. Well, you blame yourself, right? You're blaming yourself for something you had no control over. But then you feel ashamed. That's where being ashamed comes from. And anger, that's where the anger of guilt. Is it your fault? You're angry. You let it happen. You're ashamed it happened. But in the end, it's not even your fault. You're innocent, right? Your innocence was stolen from you. Yeah, but this is a battle every day. I mean, just talking about, we can take this conversation wherever we want to go, right? But this just isn't a one day, this is every day, dude. This is every day you open your eyes for some people. I wouldn't continue to do what I do every day if it wasn't an everyday battle, right? If we could turn this on and off, I wouldn't even be sitting here right now. But it's important to me to see others succeed and overcome whatever issues they have, especially mentally. Life's hard, man. And we don't need no added shit to it, right?
Minds, and it's our role.
Yeah, no problem. It just came to me today. I had it written down on my notes. I do take notes. And I had it written down the other day. I had it written down. I don't know. And then after visiting with my father yesterday, and he brought up some stuff about Vietnam shit. And why maybe he's in the condition he is today, because he went up north. His second tour, he went up north. And they used a lot more Agent Orange and other chemicals and shit up there. And then we were just talking about, like, the other guys he fought with don't have the same issues he has. Now, it could be other reasons behind that, but health-wise, he's in a lot worse shape. Maybe was it his lifestyle? Who knows, right? Was it genetics? Who knows? But the other guys that fought with him that didn't go to the places he went are in way better health. I mean, that could just be whatever, but I mean, they were exposed to a lot of shit over there. It's just something he brought up yesterday, and I never thought of it like that.
Try and help folks regardless of what day of the year it is.
But yeah, it's a very interesting topic. PTSD in general, right? It's what the mind sees that we're not supposed to see. There's things in life that we're not prepared for, and there's things in life we should never see or go through. Anyone that suffers with PTSD, would you say the same thing? Like, it's something that's very traumatic, right? And that can be anything. It don't have to be war, right? I mean, there's some crazy, well, not crazy. There's some very intense, insane things that happen. I guess crazy as well, yeah. That happen to people and civilians, right? You don't have to be a soldier. You don't have to be in war. I mean, some of the cities in the United States are like war, right? People are scared to leave their house. But when you see people suffering, that served our country. I mean, obviously people in general too, right? It just holds a little special spot in my heart because I mean, does anyone know anyone that suffers from PTSD from and seen it with their own two eyes? Like I just don't think it's fair, right? How is it fair? How is it fair that all you did was doing your job, right? Now you got to suffer the rest of your life? I just don't understand that. It don't make sense. It's like they use you, right? Now maybe I'm wrong, right? I didn't serve this country, but it's like they use you, and then once they break you down, build you up to who you are, who they want you to be, right? I want you to be this Marine, right? You got to be this, blah 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 blah. No one's individual. We're all gonna do everything the same, and I get it, right? There's good aspects of that. There's good life lessons. There's good things that come from the military and shit like that. But you do your duty, and now what? But now that changed my whole life. I seen it. I seen it happen to people. I seen people become alcoholics. I seen people become, take their lives. I seen people struggle to find where they fit in after combat or after being in the military. Now, whose fault's that? Right? Who's going to take accountability? 22 veterans a day? 22 veterans a day die by suicide. I'm sure that number's higher now. So what are we going to do to help these people? What are we going to do to help the suicide in general? They were just doing their jobs, right? They were just doing what they were told. They were doing what they were trained to do. But at what point do we how do we change it? How do we change it? I just don't understand how you can go from walking in the jungle or walking in the mountains of Afghanistan or through towns every day you're trying to survive, and then just put them right back in society and expect them to be productive. None of us, or I haven't had to deal with that. I can't say none of us, right? I don't know who here has ever been to combat, but for me in general, I never had to do that. I never had to walk outside my door and wondering who's going to stike me from a building. I never had to go on a patrol where I didn't know if there was going to be an IED or something to blow me up, right? I'm free to travel in the state I live in. That's another conversation when it comes to freedom to travel. But you know what I mean? Like we don't have them anxieties, them worries. We can just go as we please, right? So how do they adapt back in? I don't know. I just don't think there's enough done. Like I want to know the process. I'm going to post a comment or a video later and ask somebody if they're willing to share their story. I want to know the process. Now that we're on this, I want to know the process of discharge. I want to know what they do when you are done in combat. Yeah, it's great. Hopefully it works out for you. Let me know how you go with that. very cool. It's a very cool thing. Yeah, it's sad. Like, I want to know the process, the discharge. Like, is that what they call it? Like, when you get back from something like that, do they sit you down? How long does this last? What do they do? Maybe I can YouTube that. What would that be considered? Discharge from the military? Oh, how could I research that? How could I type that in? Fuck. Anybody have any input on that? I get excited and it just frustrates me. What would that be? I'm lost for words here. Discharge? I gotta call my buddy then. Maybe he'd want to do a interview. Trey, if you're watching this, I'm gonna hit you up. Huh. That's it. Wow. So nice of them. Now there's types of discharge from the military, right? You can have but that's not what I'm looking for. Yeah, I want to know, but they don't do nothing. So it's the paperwork, but they don't do nothing. They don't do nothing for your mental state. They don't like, okay, we're not going to release you to society until you're good. You know what I mean? Or at least as good as we can get you, right? Yeah, maybe I typed that in wrong because now it's coming up like honorable discharge and blah 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 blah. I got to interview somebody, man, that's way more knowledgeable in this than me. 'Cause I didn't serve this country. I didn't. I wasn't in any of this, but you have to go to the VA. But yeah, is there a process? Like we're not letting you go until we know you're good, right? Obviously, there's not, because you can just hide from it, right? You can just tell. I think there needs to be intense therapy. You know what I mean? Because I know people that struggle that never seen combat. Like there's other things that they did. I don't know exactly what it was, but there's other things this person saw that don't sit well with them, right? And I can speculate what they saw, but that's not my job. But now, the more I think about this, the more it kind of like pisses me off. So let's say, for example, like if someone at my workplace would pass away, right? Either outside the job or on the job, they would have SEEP, it's called, or SEMP or SEEP or whatever the hell the name is. They would send emails or something. There would be some way to know if anyone needs help, call this number, you know what I mean? Or blah, blah, blah. We can do a meeting, something like that. So obviously these people that have been in combat have seen death. They have seen destruction. They have seen things the human shouldn't see, right? So what is the process to getting these people help? Like, I want to know, is there a process? If there's not a process, that's pretty sad. There's got to be something. There's got to be something in place for when these people get back on U.S. soil or wherever they're from. That, listen, you're not going to be out of our care until you complete this process. There's got to be a process. And there's not, and then we're going to have to make one. We're going to have to do whatever we can to make one. In the Philippines media after World War II, I believe there wasn't a process that soldiers underwent to process their trauma. As far as I know, nothing in our history lessons informed me about that. Yeah, I don't think it's definitely back in the day. I mean, definitely back in the day, they probably didn't do shit, right? Because we were a different animal back in the day. That's a whole nother topic. But, what are they doing now for these? Like, if you've ever been to Arlington Cemetery, I used to go to DC every year for Memorial Weekend with my dad, and they had Rolling Thunder, big motorcycle thing, where you would there'd be millions of bikes, 1 million bike, 500,000, 2 million bikes, whatever. Well, we go down there every year in Arlington. I have a buddy buried in Arlington. My dad has one of his best friends, his brothers, just got buried in Arlington from Vietnam. So if you've ever been to Arlington, you would see the how many soldiers are buried there. But my point here, there's an acre. It's called 60 section, right, in Arlington. You can look this up for yourself. 60 section. It's called the saddest acre in America. Now, these are all young. Obviously, most of these people that die in war are young, but it was during the Afghanistan-Iraq war. And that's when my buddy's buried. Chris Johnson. Rest in peace, bro. Purple Heart recipient. He actually drowned in the river here where I live. But yeah, he's in the Marines. But yeah, you ever been there? It's sad. It's horrible, right? You got young kids there. You got young mothers. It's considered the saddest acre in America. So you ever been to Arlington? It opens your eyes up to what happens after war, right? And what these families go through. Yeah, it's powerful. I do offer a class before you discharge. Yeah, but see, who's going to do it, right? It should be mandatory. It was mandatory for you to have your bed this way. It was mandatory for you to be dressed this way. It was mandatory for you to act this way. It was everything else was mandatory, right? But why isn't your mental health and physical health after war mandatory? So that's what I'm saying. Like, now you're just done with me? Everything I did for you? Now you're done with me. I had to listen to everything you had to say. I had to take all your orders. You screaming in my face or however the fuck they do it, right? But now, what am I, right? You're done with me now. So I guess I'm just go back to society, right? I became the man or the woman you wanted me to be. Now what? Now you're done with me, right? No, that shit don't sit well with me. It's pissing me off, really. Like, people take pride in that. And why don't you take pride in it? So you take pride in building these soldiers, right? Or whatever you want to call them. But you don't take pride in the man or woman they are after playing war, after playing army. Like, they're no longer important. You got what you wanted, now you just move on to the next soldier that gets dropped off of the bus and puts their feet on the footprints. What are we, just numbers? They're just left to suffer in silence. I mean, everyone that ever served has a story, right? I don't know, it just frustrates me. You should be heard more. I mean, 22 veterans a day doesn't motivate the VA or motivate somebody higher than me to make change, then what else do you need? You need 20, you need 30 veterans a day. You need 40 veterans a day. I mean, what do you need, right? What more needs to happen for the government or society to realize that you can't just take a person, build them up the way you want to be, send them off to war, come back home, and just be a fucking normal citizen. It don't work that way. It's very apparent. But what's going on to fix it, right? See what the guru has to say about this. I'm sure you don't talk about the military, but or Dr. Garber. No, it's frustrating the more you think about it, though, you know? Yeah, exactly. Like everything in life, right? It's got to affect somebody higher to make change. If it's not affecting them, they don't care. Right? And until it's their kid, their child, their husband, their wife. That don't matter. Let me see if he had something on there about PTSD. I appreciate y'all being here. I mean, there's only a couple people in here today. I don't know why I don't reach nobody no more on Facebook. I don't know what the problem is. I don't know. The page was doing really good, and then whatever, right? As long as I can help one person, that's all that matters. While helping myself.
Moment you step on board, you can stay on track, indulge in every
7 impacts of trauma, right? PTSD is trauma, like that's what causes it. And the internet sucks. I'll let it load up a little bit here. Yeah, I might be going live later too. My wife got some things to do. I'm not going to go along with her. She's going to see a comedian, and I don't really have no plans. So, yeah, the whole thing's a problem. The whole thing's a mess.
So trauma comes from a Greek word for wound. So trauma is a constriction. It's a narrowing. It's a diminishment of your emotional functioning, your psychological functioning. So what I'm saying about trauma is that trauma is not what happens to you. Trauma is what happens inside you as a result of what happens to you. How many of you had the experience that you had a strong gut feeling about something and you ignored it and you were sorry afterwards? Sorry that you ignored it. Just raise your hand if you've had that experience. Okay, most people here. Now, that's what I mean. That's the first sign of trauma, or the first impact of trauma, is a separation from yourself. Because your gut feelings are the strongest guide for what you need in the world. They're essential. How long would you survive out there in nature if you ignored your gut feelings? You wouldn't. You'd be dead. That's how important gut feelings are. What makes us disconnect from our gut feelings so that they're actually even there telling you and you ignore it? Well, you've been disconnected from yourself. That's the first impact of trauma, is a disconnection from the self. The second impact of trauma is you disconnect from other people. No, you just don't trust others. You just don't trust others. And you feel very much isolated and on your own. So addiction is a very lonely kind of thing. Even if you use addiction to connect with other people, you're using it because you feel isolated. So there's a disconnection from other people, and mistrust, and isolation. That's the second impact of trauma. The third impact of trauma is your view of the world. So how do you see the world? What kind of world do you live in? So how I see the world, that's the world I live in. So if I see the world as hostile and dangerous and untrustworthy, I'm going to have a very different life.
Well, yeah, if you're in combat, that's how you're going to see it, right? So you see it like that, and then you're going to go back to society.
I see the world as basically a good place where there's suffering and there's joy. It's complex, but fundamentally, I belong here. I live in a very different world if I believe that than if I'm convinced that it's a hostile, dangerous world. So trauma distorts your view of the world in a negative way. Number 4, trauma gives you pain. It gives you a wound that there might be some scar tissue over it, but the wound is never healed, actually. So there's pain there. And then that's pain that you need to escape from. So it imposes a lifelong pain. And I say lifelong, I mean until you deal with it. That's the 4th impact of trauma. The 5th impact of trauma is actually on brain development. What trauma actually affects how our brains develop. Children have no self-regulation. So if you're stressed as an adult, if you're mature enough, you can regulate yourself. You can take a few breaths. You can calm yourself down. You can say, okay, slow down. Let me think about this. Let me deal with this. An infant can't do that. Infant's got no self-regulation whatsoever. So the infant's brain requires the mature function of the adult's brain to regulate itself. But what if the adult's brain is not functioning maturely because that adult themselves never got the right conditions for the healthy development?
There you go. So it's passed down. I don't know what he's about to say here, but if you never fix your trauma, it's going to be passed down. That's what I believe.
Now you have an immature adult's brain regulating or trying to regulate an immature infant's brain. So that self-regulation never develops. Number 6 is that trauma gives you a shame-based view of yourself. So you become actually ashamed of who you are. Not just of what you do, but of who and what you are as a person. So trauma gives you a shame-derived sense of yourself. That's number 6. And the 7th impact of trauma is it makes it difficult for you to be in the present moment. It keeps you stuck in the past. So you react to the present, or you're thinking you're reacting to the present, but actually you're reacting to the past. And that's an important one because it affects everybody. You may think you're here because somebody in the family's got a problem and you're here to help them. What I'll be telling you throughout the day is that actually each one of us is here for ourselves.
It's pretty powerful stuff. I mean, I love that guy. He's very intelligent, way smarter than me, obviously. I learned a lot from him. I think it was a guy by the name of William that comes on here that introduced me to that guy, and kind of stuck ever since. I'm very interested in understanding life and how it works, right? And what our purpose is, or do we have a purpose? Do we need a purpose, right? For once you fulfill that purpose, then what? So, I don't know. It's very interesting stuff. I'm going to get off here. I was messaging my buddy that was actually in combat, and I asked him about, just now, I asked him about how the mental health process and the protocol goes, and he said, he might not understand what I'm asking, but he said, I'm not sure what you mean. I mean, that's kind of disturbing in itself, right? If I ask you what the protocol is for your mental health process being discharged from the military, and you're not sure what I'm talking about, maybe it don't exist, or maybe he's just not understanding what I mean. Hopefully, he's just not understanding, because if there's no process for your mental health, after seeing combat, it's a pretty sad world we live in. It's pretty sad in general. Hey, I appreciate you guys. I'm going to cut this one short today. I plan on coming back. I got some things to do, but hopefully I can go live for a good bit of time today. I'm just going to have a relaxing weekend. So I appreciate your time. If you don't mind sharing this, and set your reminders or notifications. I'm trying to get this page going again. I don't know. It just seems weird how it dies off. I don't know if it's Facebook or if it's because I took a vacation. I wasn't posting as much. It's pretty sad that a page like this would fall off just from that. But who knows? Just keep grinding. But I appreciate y'all being there. Have a safe weekend. Take care of yourself. Take care of your family. Take care of each other. Never be ashamed. It's not your fault, right? We're just humans living in a fucked up world, trying to find the best way to overcome. I'll see you later. Thanks for being here.